Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us at this September edition of the Pottstown Boro Buzz on the PCTV network. I'm your host, Cheryl Miller, and we are meeting here today at the water treatment plant with our expert of water, Director of Utilities, Brent Wagner.
How you doing?
Brent, thank you for joining us today. We are going to learn all about water today and where it comes from and how it gets to where it goes. So how it comes from the river and gets to people's homes. And I do notice as we're standing out here on this wonderful rainy day overlooking the Schuylkill River that there's an incredible deviation of the normal color, and it's very brown and mucky and muddy looking. Can you tell us what's happening here?
Okay. As Cheryl mentioned, we're at the Schuylkill River intake at the Pottstown water treatment plant. This is actually where the water is actually taken out of the river and actually transported into the water treatment plant. Today we received a good rainstorm event within the last hour or so, got probably a good half-inch of rain, and what you notice is a deviation in color. You got clear water out in the middle, and on the side here we got some dirty water, which is actually coming from a small tributary just up towards our quarry, and this is the silt that actually comes down.
Well, how do you filter out this silt from our water source?
What happens as we transport it, as we go in, we'll explain what we're doing inside here. We'll actually take, there's certain chemicals that we use to actually coagulate the silt, and we actually settle it to the bottom of the tanks. And I'll explain that as we go through the further process, how we do that.
And is there anything that can be prevented on the outside in order to make this water cleaner before it goes through the plant?
It would ultimately be the quarry is in control of the silt coming down from their facility.
All right, Brent, here we are at the pumping station. And this is how the water comes from the river into the water treatment plant?
That's correct. As we mentioned, we started the Schuylkill River, and we have a pipe that actually goes underneath the 422 highway, and that pipe comes into this facility. Underneath us, about 25 feet underneath my feet, is a wet well with pumps that will pump the water up to the water treatment plant for processing. We also, if you see this piece of equipment, US filter, this is our influent screen that removes leaves and sticks. Especially as we're coming up in the fall months, we'll have a tremendous amount of leaves coming down from the north of us, coming down the Schuylkill River, that could chance to clog us up, so we remove those leaves.
Is that all that it takes out, is just that kind of debris, anything?
Large particles that could get into our pumping station. We don't want anything in our pumps to clog them up.
And so you said as we're pumping water into the water station, you're pumping water not just for the borough of Pottstown. How many municipalities do we serve?
We serve Upper, Lower, and West Pottsgrove, and also North Coventry and part of Douglas.
So that is a pretty broad range. And you said 25, the pipes are 25 feet below the surface?
That's
here?
correct.
And the pumping station itself, so we had some heavy rains recently. Is there ever a time when the station itself gets flooded?
Obviously, I'll show you a point in our lobby. Hurricane Agnes was probably about 3 to 4 feet above my head here. Back in 2006, in June, the water was actually just starting to come into here.
During Hurricane Agnes, when it was a total washout, that means there was no clean water able to be pumped through here into the water system?
Well, I know of the history, for a week or two, there was no water being processed here because all the equipment was damaged.
So then it would just be your drinking potable water from other sources?
Yes.
Here we are at the entrance of the water treatment plant, and this is where the location would show us where the actual water level was during Hurricane Agnes. Do you want to talk to us?
As you mentioned, you asked about flooding and et cetera, and what I'd like to make mention is during Hurricane Agnes, this was actually the water level hit during that storm. And if you can take a vision as we go into our service pumps, when we go in, you'll see all that was underwater during Agnes and actually shut down the whole water treatment plant.
Well, there was no way to walk through that. I mean, that water level is higher than what we're standing now.
Yes.
Brent, it looks like we're in some kind of controlling station.
This is our control room in which we monitor how the plant operates on a 24-hour basis. And as you can see, here's our computer operation on there that gives us all the control measures, the control valves, flow rates, chemical additions to ensure water quality needs are met.
So this is a very progressive system, and your controls are not only looking at the water and the cleanliness or what chemicals that are needed or not needed, but it's also looking at functioning of the system itself, right?
Yes,
The mechanics of it.
we also get involved with the water distribution in regards to how the Public Works runs their water tanks. We see their water levels to know when we have to start feeding the water tanks again when they're low in the quantity of water.
What about maintenance things? So it will tell you if a pump is faulty, or if it's shut down, or if it needs a new part, or
Yes, there's numerous controls in there for measures to know if a pump fails, hours of operations for preventive maintenance, counting the hours of a pump running. If there's a failure of a Public Works pump in the system, we'll get alarm for that as well. But it monitors every single item in this facility.
So even though we're coming into a new century and we're very computerized, we certainly need hands-on people that are experienced, that know what they're looking at, the information that they are reading. So there is a lot of manual operations still involved.
Yes, even though we're upgrading, we're in a major upgrade right now. We're upgrading our entire facility with introducing new PLCs up here that would be a whole plant brand new in regards to computer operation. We also have the ability, if the computers fail, you have to operate the plant in a manual mode, which means interface with a human being controlling everything. And that is, we have those capabilities.
And that's very important, especially as the world gets scarier and scarier with more automation and more robotics.
Yes, you still need you need someone to be in touch with the plant. They need hearing, smelling, seeing how the plant's running.
Good to know. Brent, currently we're in a very interesting looking location, and I almost feel like we're walking in a spaceship off of Aliens. So what is it that we're doing here in this process?
This is our pipe gallery, in where we are taking our water from our filters and removing the water down through gravity into a clear well underneath the building. There's a huge water reservoir underneath this facility that we pump the water out to the system. We also, in this pipe gallery, add chlorine. As you know, in your house, you smell the chlorine when you're taking a shower or drinking the water. For disinfectant purposes, make sure you have clean water. And we also add the sodium hydroxide for pH control. And as you look down here, it's a huge piping system. And all this is distributing water out of our filters to the clear well underneath our feet.
How large is the well that's underneath of us?
It's approximately 1 million gallons.
1 million gallons. And that is where the water is pumping from, that clear well?
Yes, it's a storage facility for us to pump into the town. Plus also, it aids us for capacity issues to make sure that during storm events, we can store water here. If the river gets dirty or something comes down from the river, we have the capabilities of supplying the water needs when we can't take water out of the river.
Okay, and then what you said, you had mentioned about smelling chlorine, and which sometimes I do. There's a certain level that you have to stay, a safe level that you have to stay within when you're supplying water.
Yes, there's federal regulations in regards to what chlorine concentration that must hit your house. And as you know, you do smell chlorine, which obviously I don't want you to smell it, but the regulations require us to be at a certain level, and you will have the odor of chlorine.
So obviously we're still safe drinking that water, even with that mild odor.
Yes.
Brent, we're looking at a row of what looks like very shallow pools. So what are we seeing here?
We're here, this is a process where it's one of the final processes of filtering our water. If a lot of people will have filters on their kitchen sink, it's really no different than that. The water will sit on top of this media and actually percolate through gravity-wise and filter out any large particles to make sure you have clean water.
So there's a set number of pools, and there's a reason that you have this set number because of the amount of water that you have coming through?
Yes, if you see, we have 6 filters in here. Basically, we can turn one off for maintenance. There's always backups in the facility. Just like I mentioned downstairs we have 3 different type of pumps, a 6 million, of 9 and 12. Well, we have redundancy. So if one filter fails or gets dirty, you clean it, take it out of service, and then put it back in service.
How many have to be operating at one time for just a normal supply of water to the residents?
We usually run all of them at one time, but during needs, we can go down to 2/3 of the plant running. So we can take out 1/3 of these filters.
Does anything that happens here ever affect water pressure?
No, nothing in this area. This is all gravity. The water pressure would occur from our pumping systems, or if you have water main breaks. If a water main breaks occurs on your street, your water pressure is going to change. And also that could cause turbidity, dirty water as well during that when you have low pressures.
And then when a water main break happens, is that notified in your control room?
Yes, we actually would see a pressure change, and our operators would actually notice immediately that there's a big water main break. Small water main breaks you wouldn't, but a large one, we'd see a major pressure change and a flow increase, because lower pressures means higher flow rates. So you would see a change up here.
Now we're outdoors and we're also looking at groups of pools, but this is a different process.
That is correct. What we have, as you mentioned, down at the river, we saw that dirty water. When he scanned out there, he saw muddy water because of the rain. What we're doing, as that water's pumped up to the plant, we actually mix chemicals into that water, that one product's aluminum sulfate, to bind the dirty water together. You're trying to bind that mud together. So what we're doing is, as we put those chemicals together, we come out to these slow, big pools. We're trying to slow down the water movement. So no different than your pool. If someone has a pool at home, it's a nice quiet place to be. The mud will actually settle to the bottom of these tanks, and the clear water will continue to go through these basins into our filters, where one of the final processes is filtering the water. So basically all we have is a big pool where we're trying to settle out dirt from the river.
What pulls the mud down? Is it just strictly chemicals?
You bind the dirt together with the aluminum sulfate, and we add some pH controls, sodium hydroxide, to change the chemistry, and then those particles will bind together, and gravity will actually pull those particles to the bottom of the basin. And then we clean these basins out twice a year and actually transport the dirt, the sludge, to the wastewater treatment plant or farm grounds.
How deep are these pools?
These pools are about 15 feet deep.
And the water's very clear, so you can see to the bottom of these. Brent, where does the dirty water go? Or obviously it's, there's more of a process, so something's being dumped somewhere in the process.
Well, as you mentioned, we do produce dirty water. We clean our filters when we backwash them, which we remove the dirty particles, the final process before we pump it out of the system. We also, as you mentioned, out in the basins, we have that mud, dirt, sludge. We actually will pump that over or distribute over to the lagoons where we do treatment over there. Before that water can go back into the river, we actually settle the dirt back out again, so that our intake doesn't take in the dirty water as well. And plus, people downstream, you don't want to send the mud back out.
So again, there's all kinds of standards and limits and what you can put back in the river, what you can put into the plants. Then that's all monitored on a daily basis as well.
That is correct. And the state, the Pennsylvania DEP will monitor us from a standpoint of water quality, going out to the residents that take our water. And DEP will also monitor us from the stance that we're not violating any dirty water going back into the river.
How old is the plant here?
This plant, as you see, is built in 1965.
And obviously, since we're in 2017, there's been some incredible amount of upgrades done to the plant and the systems.
Yes, over the last 5 years, our capital plan has been very intensive up here. A couple years ago, we actually, as I mentioned, that clear well underneath our basement here, we had divers in there for over 6 months cleaning the basins out and rehabilitating our pumps, our valves. As I mentioned, we're doing a computer upgrade. We're basically in our final phases of our capital plan in regards to upgrading the facility totally. Even if you mentioned out in the basins, you saw the quiet pool, those basins were all rehabilitated 2 years ago.
And a lot of the progression has been because of needs. So more building, more commercial, more development.
That's correct.
So you started off as just a little house of pumping water down here before you've become this grand facility that you are now?
Yep. And the ultimate goal, as you said, that we're upgrading. Our goal here is to make sure this plant's around for another 100 years. This plant should be no reason it can't last for another couple generations. And that's what we're doing at this point in time, to provide a major upgrade so that the needs of the community as they grow, lower Pottsgrove's going, hopefully we distribute our water to them as well. So.
And we're able to handle that here, the need for growing and development, because more townships are growing, more and more housing developments, more and more commercial developments, and you anticipate that we will be secure for 100 years, knowing all that in the surrounding townships that we service.
Yes.
Brent, we are just past the front entrance of the water treatment plant, and we're looking at something that looks like a giant octopus to me. So could you tell us what this is and what it does?
What we have here, this is actually our end process here. These are our high service pumps that will actually pump the water into the distribution system in your house, and also the water tanks throughout Pottstown and Lower Pottsgrove. So what we have here is 3 different pumps. We have a 6 million gallon a day pump, a 9 million gallon a day pump, and a 12 million gallon a day pump. On average, we average 5 million gallons a day of processed water distributed into the town. So we usually run the 6 million gallon a day. Then you see this large one is actually the 12. If we have a fire in town that requires a lot of water, this unit would be put on to service the town to supply the water for fire needs or during normal operations.
How are you notified of that? Is it done electronically? I mean, how do you get a call that there's a fire somewhere in order to increase the water service?
The fire chiefs would communicate to us if they would need water, and they directly correspond with us here at the water plant.
And then that's not an automatic release. That's something that you have to physically say.
Yeah, we have to turn the pump on and manage our pump systems and turn this 12 on if they would need water.
And again, this is all clean water. So this is what we're drinking?
Yes, you'll be drinking. These pumps are supplying drinking water right to your house.
Well, Brent, I want to thank you for joining us for this edition, again, of the Pottstown Borough Buzz on the PCTV network and showing us the operations of the water treatment plant. I do have one last question for you before you go, because we're in a very remote location here, and it's offset from the borough of Pottstown. So what township are we actually located in?
We're actually in Stowe, which is West Pottsgrove Township.
Does this border on more than one township, or the plant itself exists solely in West Pottsgrove?
West Pottsgrove, but we border between Montgomery County and Berks County.
That's very interesting. Thank you for watching, and I'm your host, Cheryl Miller, and we'll see you next time on the Pottstown Borough Buzz on the PCTV network.